Hello, everyone. I'm Laurie Lane-Zucker, founder and CEO of Impact Entrepreneur, and we are broadcasting from the SOCAP conference in San Francisco. I am sitting with Valerie Redhorse Mohl, who is the CEO slash executive director of Social Venture Circle. Welcome, Valerie.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's so great to finally meet you.
Absolutely. I know we've been trying for over a year now. So, Valerie, you joined SVC as the CEO during about a year and a half ago, right? During a really crucial and transformative time for the organization. Why don't you talk about that transition and what came before and what is happening now?
Sure. So, Social Venture Network and Investor Circle were two of the longest standing nonprofits in the social impact space. And what actually happened in the 80s, Social Venture Network was formed and really is often credited with starting the business as a force for good and social impact in business and not philanthropy movement. And I think most people are familiar with some of the original founders like the Ben and Jerry's and Eileen Fisher and Jeffrey Hollander from Seventh Generation and the original founders Josh Melman and Wayne Silby and Calvert. I mean, so many what I would call luminaries and just so important in this space. But what happened in the 90s, a lot of entities started to focus on very specific things within impact and then spun out of SVN. SVN became almost like the grandparent. And so B Lab spun out and ASBC and BSR, and Investor Circle was one of the spinouts. And they focused strictly on the movement of capital into early stage impact companies and did a lot, hundreds of millions. So fast forward to 2018, and just seeing what is happening in the world around us and how it's no longer a sidebar conversation. There's an urgency, there's a lot of work to be done. They decided to merge back together, and that happened prior to my involvement. But when they merged, they decided they wanted to really have a new focus as a merged organization, and they did a search for an executive director, and I was so fortunate enough to be selected. And I left a background of investment banking and filmmaking and running a few nonprofits and raising children, and couldn't be more excited to be here. I think we are at a crucial time. I think there's an urgency, and I stand on the shoulders of so many of our members that have had such deep impact. And I often say, if impact was a sport, we have some Hall of Famers in our network.
So let's talk about what SVC is doing now and has been since you took over. You've got the big conference, annual conference that's coming up in a few weeks, yes?
Right. Yeah, our conference is called Welcome to the Next Economy, which is also our tagline. It'll be at the Claremont in Berkeley, November 13th through 15th, and it is jam-packed with some really exciting stuff.
Do you have a projection of how many people you're expecting to attend?
Well, we will sell out. I think we're almost there now. I think we can only hold somewhere between 400 and 500 because of the constraints of the space, and it'll be at capacity.
And how many of those of that number are full members of SVN, and how many are people who are, participating but not yet members?
I would say most of them are members and have been coming to SVN or IC conferences for many, many years. But we do have guests and people looking to explore the space. So probably 80-20, most members though. And again, we convene to really kind of connect and get regenerated, and go back out and do all the good work and to learn from some of these case studies that are just incredible.
Yeah, I can give people from SVN a great deal of credit for the work that I did in 10, 12 years ago when I started one of the first B corporations. And as you, I'm sure, are aware, a lot of the work to start B Corps, right, which has gotten so much traction around the world with 3,000 certified B Corps, and now we have the benefit corporation legal set up in 30 or so states. A lot of this came out of SVN and the network, didn't it?
Yes, it did. In fact, so many big ideas and big movements were started at SVN. It's well known to be that launcher and incubator. and we want to do more, and we want to continue that legacy. We're very proud of those partners like B Lab, and we still work with them, but again, we know there's a lot more work to be done.
So beyond the conference, what are you doing with SVC these days?
So when I joined, I looked at my mandate twofold. One was identifying legacy programming and keeping that active and fresh and alive, and then also looking at what I would say more visionary programming of where are there gaps, where is there a need for us to create these big movements. So the legacy programming, we have local networks all over the country, and then we have this global network that's an overlay, so we're able to be a lot more effective in getting deal flow and facilitating capital, having peer circles, and all of the legacy stuff that went on. When it comes to new sort of visionary programming, the staff and the board and I looked at where are the gaps, and one of the areas we saw was supply chain. So we have a lot of companies, B Corps and then our own SVC companies, that do get financing and have deep impact, but then how do you get them into the supply chain of the big corporations that say they want to change? And so we have a supply chain initiative that we're working on across all sectors. It's not just climate change. Climate change is a big focus, obviously, but it includes, products so you use less water, and organic foods, and also looking at employment practices, hiring companies that have open hiring, that type of thing. And then we also looked at the flow of capital. So we're very focused on assets and the use of those assets in business. It's trillions of dollars that's flowing through the economy, and that's where we see the change. It's going to come from business. The governments and the nonprofits are just not going to be able to do it all. And so we looked at the asset holders, and they're mostly white males, in all honesty, and there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but it's skewed. It should be more balanced. And so we have an initiative called the Aggregator, designed to meet and solve their asset under management minimums so that more money can flow into women and diverse managed funds. And we're pretty excited about that, because other than just talk about how unfair it is, we're actually doing something that solves for a real issue that needs to be addressed. And then we've got tons of educational sessions that we're working on. We're working with other countries to help them launch impact and training entrepreneurs and social enterprises, and training investors we find is really important too. We've opened our asset classes so that we're looking at more than just private equity and early stage. We're looking at debt, we're looking at integrated capital, government programs, all kinds of ways to structure terms and really help impact companies scale the whole way through.
So give me the domain name that people can go to learn more about it, and also if there are spots left, register for the conference.
Absolutely. So it's svcimpact.org, and if you hurry, there are still some spots left for the conference. I will be there, and our whole team, and it'll be fantastic in Berkeley at the Claremont Hotel.
Valerie, thanks so much for taking the time out.
Oh, I'm a fan,
Thank you.